Hey up guys, it's Rory from Enlighten The Shadows here, and we are a men's mental health group that is out there to support and make a difference. Our heart in Enlighten The Shadows is to create media, mindfulness and mentoring in a way we can really impact men's lives so that we can see them transform and utterly be supported and poured out love upon their lives. So it's, even if men are just struggling with a bit of stress and anxiety or across the spectrum, all the way to if they feel like they just want to end their life or be suicidal. So if that's you, if you feel like you have no reason to live anymore, or you just need a little bit of support, if you need some guidance about how to better your life, some of your mindsets and your strategies, we'll be honoured to have you on the journey with us. And you'll just say welcome to the brotherhood. We don't claim to have all the answers, but we are just here for you, extending that olive branch to see you flourish in your life. And we just say, have a go, give it a go. You never know what could happen. Have a great day. Cheers, guys.
Hey up everyone, welcome to Enlighten The Shadows. Today is the big one. We've got it, we've got the 50, it's gone up, half century's there. So welcome to episode 50. What a journey it's been. I'm really blessed and humbled to make it this far with you guys. Thank you so much to all of you who have watched the episodes, shared them more than anything, and also subscribing to our channel so we can reach more men across the world and support them with their mental health. So I appreciate you so much. We don't stop here. Say it every time we get a new goal on our socials about our viewers and subscribers. We don't stop. We have to keep moving forward this movement. There's so much work to be done in this broken world that we live in. And so we've got to be that shining light. So thank you to you all. It's not just about me and the hard work I put into it. It's also about people appreciate the journey that we're on and supporting the mission. So yeah, appreciate you guys. Today for episode 50, we have flying in all the way from the East Coast again. We're doing well stateside. We get a few Yanks, as we call them. No offense to you guys, but yeah, Jonathan Seator, welcome to Enlighten The Shadows, brother.
Thank you for having me, Rory. Definitely an honor to be on the podcast. Seen a few episodes and really liking the mission that you're doing to help reach young men and help them with their mental health.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Kind words, man. And it was good to get connected online. Through Twitter. Again, Twitter wins. People say Twitter isn't the real world, but it has some beautiful places and spaces. And yeah, I appreciate that connection we made. And brother, I want to just say it how it is. As I said to you, we say how it is at Enlighten. I read your tweet about depression, anxiety, and I love it, but you worded it. You said, we'll put it on the screen for the viewers now, but you worded it basically saying, I'm going to get in trouble for this one. It's going to make some people unhappy. And then you basically said, and before I say this, I want the viewers to please do what I attempted to do, which was, it will sting what is on the screen. It will make you kind of go, oh, I don't think I agree with that. But can I just encourage us to be proper men and women? If we are watching, having some women on today, that's brilliant. Welcome. To be mature about this and ask yourself a question to that statement. Why would a guy say a thing like that? I'm curious. And this is, so, brother, you said, that, if you get anxiety, depression, at a certain point, it can become selfish. So I was flabbergasted by the comment. And so I remember what I said to you. I don't know if you remember. I said, genuine question. And I meant it because I was a little bit like, oh, no, I'm not sure. But have you been diagnosed with individually one or both? And, you bravely said, yeah. So I thought, man, I got to talk to this guy. This is going to be brilliant to get to know his heart, his experiences, and enlighten them to our viewers. So on that tweet, can you just give a bit of kind of background from your life? Because I'm being honest, brother. People be like, oh, what? What's he on about? This is that kind of, it's that kind of statement or mentality that has the problem. And I go, is it a problem? I'm not sure. So what happened to your mental health journey, brother, roughly in the last 5-10 years, so our viewers can know who you are a bit more?
Sure. So growing up, probably around age 13 or so, I really started struggling with anxiety and depression, had some kind of turmoil at home. And then we'll fast forward to August of this past year. And my dad passed away like very unexpectedly. And I just kind of had like this moment where I was like, a lot of my stuff in the past, I had kind of like blamed on my dad because he was a little bit like emotionally abusive and whatnot. And I kind of had this moment where I was just like, I can't blame him anymore. I can't blame anyone else anymore. Like, my problems in my life are because of me and because of the choices I made, because of my habits. And I just started drastically going about and changing my life. And when I kind of composed that tweet, I had saved it as like a draft. And ironically, it ended up being one of my better tweets in terms of like how many people it reached and engagement. But I was sitting on it in the drafts for a little bit. And then one day I was out with coworkers after work at a happy hour, and I kind of, I kind of was getting like anxious. I wasn't talking that much. And I just thought to myself, I was like, it's always when I'm getting anxious or when I'm feeling depressed, like I always make it about me. I'm like, why, are these people liking me, or am I doing the right things? And I just thought like that's kind of like a toxic thought pattern. Like it's not always all about me. I can just kind of be in the moment and just focus on other people and not worry. Like you don't have to burden yourself. That's really what it is. It's like
that.
it's a learned pattern of either helplessness or a thought pattern that kind of you get just stressed out just for the sake of being stressed, almost like it's so habitual that you really have to start digging through some of that deep inner self work to kind of start addressing it. So I had just kind of seen it in my drafts again one day, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna send that out. And that actually got like a lot of traction on Twitter.
Yeah, man. And I think from what I'm reading and what I'm kind of like scoping is you didn't mean to do that to like get clickbait or likes. I think you genuinely came from a place of like, no, hold on a minute, like there's something more to this that we can unlock. And I think you've just done so beautifully there. Like a lot of people got to hear that. It's not about pointing the finger at them and saying, right, it's your fault necessarily. I think it's actually about avoiding the fact that it's anyone's fault. It's just about taking ownership of what you can control and letting go of the things that you actually you can't control. Like, I've gone on that journey a little bit. So that's why, thankfully, I had the openness to like see past my reaction to your tweet and go, oh, what's this guy on about? Like, you can't say that. There's people who are genuinely stuck. It's not their fault. They've genuinely had a lot of trauma in their life, adverse childhood experiences that are valid. But this is what I want to ask you as well, brother, is about timing, like how we process trauma or events that have happened out of our control, what I'll say. And then how do we get to that decision-making process where, referring to what you've described well about not blaming yourself or making it about you, what can you help with our viewers? Because they could have a collation of events and go, right, genuinely, it actually wasn't my fault and I feel really bad. But it's having that, I guess, that revelation in a moment in time where they go, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to be this person anymore. I'm not going to prolong this longer to then almost victimize myself. I don't know what, I'm just thinking out loud because it's such an amazing topic, but it's also quite delicate. So yeah, man.
Yeah, it definitely is delicate because I realized there were some people that got offended. Like when I talk about mental health, sometimes I take like a kind of like harsh stance because we see it a lot like in pop culture and even with people in the healthcare and like therapy field. Like they want to coddle you and like, you definitely need support and you need it can't always be like very blunt with people, but at the same time, like for me, when I started taking responsibility for my life is when I started actually like being able to make some of the changes to my habits and whatnot. And I guess like what did it for me was like this huge catharsis because when my dad died, I hadn't spoken to him for about 3 months. Like our last interaction was he had taken my sunglasses and I had called the cops on him because he was like, things were going missing from the house, and I was living with him at the time. And it was just like, it was just awful to know that that was like our last interaction. And so I guess for some people, like I can speak from my experience, like it was just this big catharsis, like this big emotional moment. And also around the same time, you know, because once that happened, a few months passed, I got my own apartment and whatnot, and I was enjoying life. You know, life's pretty good. So around the same time, I had actually, ironically, quit my antidepressants, and I did it pretty much cold turkey. I
Wow.
didn't do it under like a doctor's recommendation or with any guidance. So, and it ended up being brutal. Like the first week or two after my dad passed, I was kind of just burying all these emotions, and I was like once I guess I started experiencing withdrawal symptoms from the antidepressants. Like I was shivering and like started getting really violent mood swings. Like it was like the perfect storm. I was looking off my balcony and just kind of thinking like there was this mezzanine that kind of juts out, and I was just looking down and I was like, shit, I don't know if that fall is going to be big enough to do the job. And because I was thinking about ending everything, I was just couldn't live with myself like that anymore. And
yeah, man.
So I'm sitting there, I go off the balcony, or I come back in from the balcony, I should say, close the door, and I go to the bathroom, and I'm just in the bathroom hyperventilating, like, and I just eventually, after whether it's like 5 or 15 minutes, I'm just like, all right, I look at myself in the mirror, I'm like, all right, fuck this. Like, I cannot go through life living like this, like not in control, always being depressed, always being anxious, and like always blaming someone else for what it is. Like, yeah, some bad shit happened throughout my life, and some of it wasn't my fault. But at the end of the day, like how I feel, how I react, and how I choose to go forward and like carve out this path in my life, that's all me. And it was kind of in that moment, like right around the time my dad died, and I had gone through like this, you know, this huge like mood swing of quitting antidepressants. That's when it kind of like finally clicked, and that for me was the moment, which is like I realized not everyone's going to get an experience like that. Like some people it might be a lot worse, or some people might be able to come to that kind of realization without some sort of big like traumatic event. But that's what it was for me. So I don't know if I've quite answered the question, but that kind of gives you some background.
Yeah, thank you. It just helps dive into it a little bit more. And anyone watching, and even myself, like I feel like I'm watching, because everyone I have on here, I just love listening to them and getting to know them as a person. And I never invalidate anyone's experiences, because like that's their truth. Like, and I think today's society, like the whole cancel culture, is so dangerous for that. Like when online, it's like we said, Twitter's an amazing space, and it is, but it can be quite a nasty place where, within 140 characters, you can never be wrong, and your opinion's always right, and therefore you cancel someone who has a different opinion to you, or a different interpretation of the world, or experience with anxiety and depression. I think, having on you it's been wonderful, and also thank you for being so vulnerable and brave about these things, because they're not nice things to talk about. It doesn't feel good, but the fact that you're showing that to the viewer is brilliant. And the whole timing thing is, a guy, I don't know if you heard of a guy called Viktor Frankl. He's I've mentioned him a few times on some past episodes. He was a prisoner at Auschwitz in the Second World War, and thankfully he survived. And he said this really powerful statement, and it's referring to a lot what you shared, and it's this: between stimuli and response, there is a space. So the Nazis beating, shooting, subjecting them to such inhumane things is the stimuli, and then he has his response right here. He says, in between them, there's a space to choose. And it's a lot what like you're kind of insinuating is like, yeah, these things hurt, and yeah, we've got to heal and take time to process, to acknowledge and comprehend them. But at some point, you do have a response to make, and taking that ownership and responsibility, which is one of our things that I come up with, is ACT. You've got to acknowledge it, because then you're in denial, and then you just bury it, which is a whole nother problem. Then the C is to comprehend, to actually just start thinking about it, Like, you know, how does this affect my daily life? What are my triggers? What things can I improve? And then the action bit is key, because like that's your response, right? That's the bit where after you've got the stimuli, you've had your space, and then you can't just sit there and be paralyzed, or you just go downhill. So yeah, man, thank you, and I hope that would help you in some sort of way too. Like how I've learned that, I'm like, wow, we have 100. You said it, and this is what stands out. You had 100% control of how you respond or how you react to those, you know, tough things you've been through. You have to draw the line in the sand and say, okay, am I gonna be for the rest of my life imprisoned by this, or am I just gonna actually say today no? Like, it might be hard tomorrow. I might wake up tomorrow and I might feel anxious, but we have a decision of how we respond and react to it. So yeah, man, I appreciate everything you're saying. And secondarily, sorry, it's about you, but you said a lot of good things there. I want to just unpack it. You talked about habits. I'm really curious about that, because I'm reading this bad boy at the moment. And for the viewers, I'm going on a 30-day review of this, and I'm posting one post a day. And bruv, I've got highlights everywhere from this thing, and I can't get enough of it. And the connection that we had just before off camera was George Cisneros, who came on episode, I think it was 47-ish, 2 episodes ago, talking about being brave and courageous. So can you talk with our viewers about, because you mentioned it very briefly, I thought, oh, hold on a minute, there's a nugget, and we got to unpack that. So what's with habits? Enlighten us what you mean by all that stuff, and what have you experienced with habits?
Sure. So when I look back, today's actually the 7-month anniversary of the day my dad passed. And when I look back at what I was doing with my life back then, my habits are a lot different. And I think that's been a massive part of improving how I feel about myself, you know, my self-worth, my confidence, and also dealing with anxiety and depression. So 7 months ago, I was still living at home in my parents' place. I was smoking weed every day. I was playing video games every day, probably for like 4 to 6 hours every day after work.
Games?
Like playing a lot of Call of Duty, a lot of
Card
FIFA.
Warzone.
Yeah,
Warzone.
So I mean, we're talking like 40 to 60 hours a week some days, because like that was all I was doing. I was using video games, weed, porn, stuff like that, you know, not productive stuff. And I was using that just to escape these shitty feelings I was feeling. And what I realized was that when you do that continually, it destroys your motivation center in your brain, because you're getting all this dopamine, but you're not earning it. It's cheap dopamine, and you're just kind of going through the motions. And then when you go to work, you're just like thinking about like Call of Duty or something. Like it was destroying my brain.
Sorry, just because I want to pause where we are, because
Sure.
this is quality. Thank you. This is powerful. You mentioned something in your brain. The dopamine is this was the hormone, it's chemical hormone, the feel good rush. But what was the bit in the brain that you said, the center? What was it?
Like my motivation center, I guess.
Yeah, your motivation center, right?
At least for me, when I notice when I'm doing those things like excessively, like I don't have motivation to do stuff that I know I need to do, like clean my room, for example, or, you know, go out and shoot pool and try and socialize. Like I didn't have any motivation, because I was so used to just doing these easy things to get these cheap hits. And then it would just be like, you wake up the next day and you just want to go down the cycle again. And it wasn't sustainable. It wasn't making me happy. It wasn't providing any value to my life in the real world. So kind of when all that started going down, when I got my own apartment, I was like, all right, we're going to start going to the gym. And I started going to the gym probably like twice a week, man. I was so sore. Like I didn't want to go to the gym at first. I was like, oh man, like this is awful. But gradually I started building that up to like 3-4 times a week. Now I go 3-4 times a week. It's just every day, like part of my identity. If I don't go, I try and go for a walk, or, you know, make sure I'm eating healthy. So it's just like all these things kind of like it started with the gym, and then it started with quitting video games, quitting weed, quitting porn, like, and I won't lie, like, I'm not perfect in adherence to all these habits, but I've been doing so much of the good habits that it outweighs when I do slip up. And then another like important thing for me was becoming a Christian. I had always kind of been like, I would refer to myself as a devout atheist, like growing up in high school and college. And I would always try and like, you know, oh, science and like pick apart other people's faith. But something happened after my dad died where I just became like a lot more open to it. I started going to church, and then I finally accepted Jesus Christ as my savior. And that was like huge for me because part of, at least for me, part of my anxiety and depression was always like, because I wasn't good enough, I wasn't perfect, you know. And when I accepted Christ, it was like, well, dang, like I don't have to be perfect, and no one is but him. And it like set my soul free, really. I know that's like really deep, and some people out there might be like, no, that's not for me. But I promise you, if you open up to that idea and you stop trying to be God in your own life, just try and live a good, honest life. And when you have that ability to kind of give your problems to something or someone bigger than you, like it's next level stuff in terms of taking that weight off your chest.
Come on now. Man's preaching in here now. Oh, they're in trouble. Yeah, man. Well, the viewers will know, but yeah, I'm born again, brother. I don't think I've said on camera. I'm not sure I have, but a little bit like you. Chasing hard, living life hard. Went to America. I was in North Carolina for 4 years on a soccer scholarship, and I had a lot of brokenness inside me, but made out I was fine. I was Jack the Lad at parties, doing this, that, and the other, up to all kind of things that you've mentioned. And like deep down, I was just broken and just didn't want to face it. Just kept, like what you saying earlier, so powerful. You got to expose the truth, man. And it's like you keep trying to run away from your problems and bottle them up. It's only going to go one way. It's just destructive. And you know, everything we're saying to you viewers, like this is not a finger pointing session. There's no condemnation at all. You know, we're not putting anyone down. It's just self analyzation of our lives. John and I, like saying, like real talk, we wanted to fulfill a certain expectation, a standard, and we can't reach it. We cannot reach that standard. You know, I won't go and start preaching now, but it says no one is good but God alone. You know, we all fall short of His perfection. You know, that's why. You know, 1 billion people today want to pursue that out of 7 billion because they can't do it anymore. We can't do it anymore in our strength. And it's liberating, guys. Trust me. We're not trying to convert you. We can't do nothing. John had his revelation. I have had mine at different checkpoints. It's a moment, but it's a revelation of making a choice too. And it liberates you, man. It's so liberating. That's why when you started going in, I was like, oh yes. Come on now, tell them. So, yeah, with the habits as well. We won't go too more into God and stuff because there's a time and a place for that. And I appreciate there'll be people from all walks of life, but we're just being real, man. George knows you now. So, did he recommend that book, or have you read?
He has, yes, he has recommended Atomic Habits. It's on my list of things to read.
Yeah.
So I reached out to George on Twitter shortly after my dad passed away because I saw like a lot of good, like, you know, fatherly qualities in George, and I just had some emotions. Like I just needed someone to talk to that would kind of like was like a positive example, you know. And so I reached out to him and started working with him on Twitter, and it's funny how all that is like intertwined. Like maybe even we got connected because of him, like because he could have liked or retweeted that, and that's probably how we got connected. Like it kind of is crazy when you think about like Twitter and other social media. Like you can use it excessively and you can be like consuming other people's content, and that's going to feel like, you know, you're going to be comparing yourself to others, and it's going to feel that anxiety and depression. Or you can use it positively, do what we're doing right here and use it to like network, use it to follow people that are, you know, a few steps ahead of you in life and learn from them. So that's like really key for me. Like my Twitter originally started out, I was just like shit posting about crypto and stuff and had like 200 followers. And I was like, you know what, let's like be more authentic. We'll make it not anonymous. We'll make it me. And through making good connections on Twitter, following positive people, like that's what kind of inspired me to start going to the gym more. So it's like social media and all this, you're feeding your brain this content. So if you're going to be on it and using it a lot, you better make sure you're doing it with good content. Because if you're following all these people, and maybe it's even like friends in real life or people, you know, friends of friends, and if they're always tweeting negative stuff and like complaining about gas prices, like it's going to train your brain to just think about the negative stuff. So you really have to be responsible when you're online, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And it's quite a tricky interpretation of things and decision making process in your mind, because conversely, and I'm with you 100%, you can also have on the other side of the scale where there's the toxic positivity, where, as we see on social media, you've got the comparing, which you rightfully talked about earlier. And then what that does is like you see these perfective lives, and you know, where everything seems dandy, and you go, oh, my life's crap. And you know, so it's finding that sweet spot, the yin and the yang. It's the balance, isn't it? And going, right, okay, I'm gonna be vulnerable. Okay, if I do have a bad day, I accept it, I acknowledge it, and press forward. But also, like, I need to be in positive spaces, man. I need people that are going to encourage me, going to speak positive vibes into my life. And you know, a scripture I was going to say earlier is that a righteous man may fall 7 times, but he gets back up. And this is the key, fellas. We just wanted to give you some tools and tips today about how to, you know, break free from anxiety and depression. Just breaking it free. And there's different ways and there's different people. But yeah, I'm appreciating this advice, man. I'm thinking as well, devil's advocate here. When you mentioned about the stuff that you do, the systems that you have in place, say, you know, a viewer's watching this, they're going, all right, yeah, nice one, mate, but I really don't know how to, like you saying this, and I'm kind of slowly starting to agree with you on this now. Like, devil's advocate, when you're in about your day, some news comes your way, it isn't great, or you're not feeling too good, you're feeling a bit grey, you wake up, you've not started your day right, you've missed out on one of your systems, and then you have another bit of a bad dig at work, something bad happens, so your day's just kind of not you know, we're not talking drastic stuff, we're talking because it's always the sly sort of things in life that really just undoes your hard work and try to sabotage where you're at. So I'm just thinking out loud for the viewers, do you have any systems in place, John, that are like, even if it's self-awareness of things that you do that helps you to recalibrate, to reset, so that you can get back on track again? Because I think a lot of people, it just suddenly happens, and then next thing you know, they're back to where they were, and it all seemed like a good idea, like new year, new me.
Right.
So.
I don't know if I'd say there's a specific system in place. It's like you said, like some days they're just gonna turn out and they're not great days. And what I tried, especially in like the first 3 or 4 months, was like, don't let those bad days become 2, 3, 4 bad days in a row, because once that happens, you don't have a habit anymore. So if I miss the gym one day, it's okay. Like I can't afford to miss it the next day, or you know, if there's a rest day, then a recovery day, then it's, you know, so you kind of have to like plan out ahead. Like you realize not everything's going to be perfect, and once you get through enough of these ups and downs, like you start to realize like it's not about being perfect, it's just about weathering the ups and downs. When you get in the valley, the view is not as great as when you're standing on top of the hill, you know, but yeah, again, it comes back down to having a choice. Are you going to stay in the valley and stay miserable? Because that's before I kind of broke free from depression. Like that's all I would do. I would, okay, you know I need to start going to the gym more. I'd go and I'd miss a few days, and it would just be like, oh, I'm not perfect. Like, why am I doing this at all? And then I'd then I'd just quit for like 6 months, and it would
the
just be
self-doubt,
like this. Yeah, it'd just be this vicious cycle. So you just have to, I guess, build discipline, because the motivation is going to fade. And really the only way that you build discipline, whether it be like with your diet or going to the gym, or like, you know, for me, quitting weed, like on days when you just really don't want to stick to the habit, but you stick to it anyways, when you go to bed that day, you're going to have like built up like your self-esteem a little bit if you actually went to the gym that day, or if you didn't smoke weed that day. Like, it feels good. You feel better about yourself. And then when you kind of snowball that for like, I'd say like 30 to 60 days, if you start doing that, and especially like playing less video games and stuff like that, like your brain starts to crave like getting dopamine from other sources, like putting in the work and actually getting the reward for something in real life. Like it just ends up being really powerful. So now I find like I was having a bad day. I woke up earlier in the week and some flies were like coming out of the drain. I've like talked to my landlord about it before, and I was really pissed off about it. And then I ended up, instead of driving to work, I walked, because I live 5 minutes away. So I walked in the sunshine. Man, by the time I got to work, I was in a great mood. I was like, you know what, someone's gonna come, you know, exterminator or whatever. Like, it's not the biggest problem in the world. And it kind of puts things into perspective. Like, you just zoom out, like, yeah, your day might be pretty crap, but you zoom out, you have so much potential. Every other day after that can be a lot better. And even later in that day can be better. It's all about your perspective, because if you get down in the weeds, you get down in the valley, and you're so used to being there, like, it's really easy to just stay there. So I would say just like keep moving the needle, like keep working towards something, whether it's the gym, whether it's some big goal or like career goal. Like, what I found is that when I get stuck and when I get depressed is when I'm either moving backwards in life, or I'm just staying the same and I get stagnant. So if you keep moving the needle every day, like even if it's just 1% better, it's a good day in the long run.
Are you sure that you haven't read that book?
No, I'm positive.
1% at a time, it talks about one of the principles. So, yeah, man, that's going to bless you. Thank you for this, Roberto. I mean, this is great stuff. What happens to you then when the excuses come? Like, you know, the self-talk, and, you know, when it's like, oh, I feel this, or, oh, no, you know, it's that voice of treason almost. Like, it's not the voice of reason, it's the voice of treason. It comes to like sabotage. What do you do when you start hearing those things? Yeah, because I know speaking from my own experience, and it might be happening to other viewers as well. So like when those doubts come, what do you try and do for yourself, or say to yourself? Or
lately I've been journaling more, and I'm kind of getting to the root of that, and I realize like it's a lot of it is self-limiting beliefs that I've just kind of like held on to. So like for me, now that I've kind of recovered from this depression, I was basically antisocial for like 3 freaking years when I was on Zoloft. And so one of my big goals is to be more sociable, make more friends, talk to more girls and all that stuff. And sometimes this voice of doubt comes in, and it's like, it's my self-talk and it's sabotaging me. So I've been journaling it, trying to get it out. I'm reading a book called How to Talk to Yourself, or What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. A pretty good book.
Got it over there. That's another one that George recommended.
Yeah, George recommended that one to me as well. And I'm realizing like it's like negative self-talk. And so I would always say, like, always kind of cop out if I didn't talk to the girl at the bar or whatever. I'd be like, oh well, it's because I'm shy, you know. And it's like, that's actually just like this programming in my mind that if I keep telling myself that, then that's going to be how it is. But if I tell myself, which I've been doing lately, is like, I'm becoming more outgoing, or I'm, you know, I might not be an extrovert, but I'm becoming more extroverted. Like,
Yeah.
So I don't know if I wouldn't say it's lying to myself, but I'm like trying to recondition my brain to where I just go out of the comfort zone anyways, because that voice of treason, or whatever you want to call it, like that's your that's almost like your fight or flight. It's just your brain's trying to say whatever it can to get you back in your comfort zone and keep you stagnant or keep you even going backwards, because that's when you're depressed and anxious, that's what you're used to. That's what's comfortable. Like, it sucks and like we hate it, but we kind of gravitate towards it anyways, and it's so counterproductive. So I'm just trying to journal it out and just like brute force, like recondition my brain, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah, it does. Thank you. And I would argue as well, to back up, that you might be shy, but shy blokes talk to women in bars. There's another way of looking at it, that shy men talk to women in bars. So you can still be shy.
Yeah,
you can still talk to the girl at the bar or in the pub or whatever, or nightclub, or, you know, on local transport, anything like that. So yeah, man, it's good stuff. Some really good stuff. I think we had Dr. Thuraya on episode 7 talking about suicide. She's an amazing therapist, and she talked about the art of externalization. So like journaling is a form of externalization, and there's this circle, this breed of men that I'm gravitated towards, and one thing they started to have in common is journaling. I'm like, what, journaling? Like, it's not what like little girls do when they write to themselves in a diary. And you know, but that's the stigma. That's the stigma behind it. Journaling is so powerful, man, and it can be quite as short as write 3 things that you're grateful today. Write 3 words as you check in. So like, you know, it could be like, so mine right now would be podcast, Enlighten The Shadows, Jonathan. There you go. There's your 3-word check-in. Just something like that. It can be emotion, a person, a place. It's quality. So yeah, man, I'm with you on the journey. It's really good stuff. Appreciate it a lot.
Yeah. One thing.
Go on, man. Yeah.
Before you ask me what you're about to ask, like you said, gratitude. Like that is probably one of the most powerful emotions, because when I'm having like something happens in the day and it's kind of sucks, or I'm having a bad day, if I just go back to being grateful, even if it's something simple like this podcast, or, you know, like I'm grateful for my apartment, or, you know, I'm grateful that I have a job. Like there are so many people out there that have it worse, and they probably have a better attitude than me in that moment when I'm like thinking of how crappy things are. So I just go back to gratitude, and that always seems to get me. It doesn't fix everything right away, but it seems to get me thinking in a better direction.
That's so good. And again, it's like, oh man, we like the same thing here, but with the balance word that I mentioned earlier, again, for me personally, my interpretation of things is the balance of, right, you've got the gratitude, but sometimes if you do too much gratitude, and there can be such thing where you're in denial. So Dr. Thuraya actually talked about this. She talked about invalidation and denial. So a lot of men, what we do is we go, oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, I get on with it, man up. So someone's got it way worse than me. Oh, it ain't that bad. So what they do is, in an extreme way, they don't actually acknowledge what we talked about earlier. They don't acknowledge that issue. So like for you, it'd be like, they haven't acknowledged truly that their dad is gone. They haven't acknowledged that it is a bit crap, that the last interaction was crap. They haven't even acknowledged it. They're just in denial still. And they go, oh, it's also, someone lost 2 parents, so it's fine. You see what I mean? It's like you're not going through the motions to actually to comprehend what you've been through, to then be free from it, so it doesn't get stored down. So yeah, man, I think again it's finding that sweet spot of absolutely we've got to go for the gratitude, but then we can't invalidate or deny what we've been through. I think if it's that sweet spot. It's like Viktor Frankl. He didn't deny all the traumas he'd been with, but he certainly got to a point where he was like, well, I've got to choose life. I've got to choose gratitude here, or else you're stuck over here. Which is the whole thing, I guess, with the state of mind we're talking about, but breaking free from anxiety and depression, man. And I'm just I'm really grateful for your insights, man, and your experiences. It's inspiring me, and thinking about the weed as well, because we've done an episode on cocaine with Jamie Acton, because cocaine's a massive thing in Britain the last 5 years now amongst lad culture. And to be honest with you, John, we didn't really go there about the cocaine itself. We stripped back the layers, went really deep. But for you, with marijuana, weed, doob, hash, or ganja, whatever people call it, can you just share with our viewers a little bit about that? Like, how young were you when you did it? How often did you smoke it? And then more importantly, how did you truly break into that freedom based on the stuff we're talking about? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So when I first smoked was at university, and it was just with in my fraternity, a few of us,
TA,
and
who were you?
Delta Tau Delta,
All right, yeah.
DTD. Yep. So, and for the first year or two, it would be I would only smoke at parties when I was already drunk, and then eventually it was like started smoking weed when I was sober. And that kind of grew into like by my senior year of university, that was like an everyday thing. Like I'd go to class high. It just wasn't, I didn't notice at the time, but it was becoming like part of my ritual, my daily ritual.
Yeah.
And then same thing, like when I graduated, I got a job. First thing I would do when I got home was I would light up, and I would light up and just smoke like 3-4 times a day after work. And it got to the point where it was pretty much every day, all day, 24/7 on the weekends. And it would be like first thing I do when I get home from work, and I would just be high the rest of the night and just kind of go and escape from life, and then go escape into video games or even more. And then it was just like, I didn't want to confront like these feelings that I had about myself and this reality that I was kind of just going deeper and deeper into a shell of like depression. And that probably lasted for like 6 years. And then once I started working with George, talked to him a little bit about it. And then, obviously my dad had passed, and I was kind of radically overhauling my whole life. I just ended up one day just like threw out all my paraphernalia, all my, my bowl, my pen, all that stuff. I just threw it out. And first like week without it was pretty tough.
Yeah.
Occasionally, like I've been offered, in public, and I've done that, here and there. But for me, like, it's not a habit anymore, if that makes sense. Like, can go out and have a drink, or if I'm shooting pool or something, someone offers, I'll probably take them up. But for me, like, I don't buy it myself, and I just like I kind of try and keep it at arm's length so it doesn't become a habit and like snowball again. Because I know like I'm not going to be perfect, but if I'm aware enough of my own like self and how I typically react to stuff, like at least I can kind of have like a game plan ahead of time. Like if I do get, if it does pop up, like I'm like, all right, I might say yes tonight, but I know that I'm not going to turn that into like a 2 or 3 day thing, because then it just snowballs and snowballs. And that for me has been really helpful, just to like, when it kind of turns into something that it's like every day and you're using it to escape, then all of a sudden it's like, holy crap, like I feel depressed and anxious again. So it's just like, for me, it's been through the years, I guess, just having enough self-knowledge to know about myself. Like I don't do any substance particularly well when it comes to moderation. So I just try and keep it out of my, like, I don't keep alcohol or weed in my house. That's just how it is now. So that's just my system for me. And for everyone else, it'll probably be different, but that's what it is for me.
No, that's good, man. I like that. Appreciate your vulnerability as well. Genuinely, that's really good. And I hope that, someone watching would take stuff from that and know that, they do have a choice in what they're doing. And just want to encourage you fellas watching this, like, seriously, lads, try not to escape it, man. I know it might be painful, but actually the better term, the long term run is just facing up to these things and not escaping. Because I think I'm on a binge with Dr. Ferrari today, but I remember saying about escapism is a classic one of men as well, where although we're actually known to be quite tough because of masculinity and all these things, but actually this is the subtlety of it, where it tries to turn us into basically a coward. And like, we're not cowards, we're strong and we're brave, and we can face up to these things. We can overcome these things. We can overcome anxiety and depression. We really can. And it's through these small micro changes that John's rightfully saying, and he's done in his life, and the proof is in the change. It works. And just hearing him now, like, he's full of beans. It's brilliant. And I'm excited for anyone watching this that they can get something out of this. And and find that freedom. We really believe in you, fellas. Just listen to these things if you can, and just try and face it. And we're here for you. You know, come on the screen right now is our private men's chat group. We've got 550 odd men that we support, and popping off mad love on there and encouragement and vulnerability. It's a safe place to face up to things. And then I'm sure, John, like your DMs are open to people as well, man. So
Yeah, my DMs are always open. I've given a few people advice, and I was kind of talking to one guy, and he was like, holy crap, like all of a sudden, like I'm depressed, I'm anxious. And I was like, all right, well, let's talk about like some of your habits. What are you doing? And we went over just like the same like main culprits: drug use, video games, porn. He's like, these are the symptoms. I was like, they're like the symptoms, and they're like the escape, that it just goes so much deeper. Like if you're using something to escape, it means something about how you feel about yourself or some sort of situation in your life isn't manageable, and you have to get your life to the point where you can manage it on your own. Like if you can't go without the weed or the video games for 30 days, or call it 30 days or whatever you want to call it, a month, like, and you're using that as an escape, then something isn't right. You have to do like the deep work and the soul searching, and just kind of, whether you go see a therapist or whether you start journaling, you got to change something, because otherwise it's going to keep dragging you back in. You're going to keep getting to that feeling where you want to escape. And eventually, for me, like with the weed and the video games, I was like, one night when I described the scene on the balcony, prior to that, I was high as hell playing video games, and I couldn't escape. I was like, holy crap, like I'm miserable. I can't escape these feelings. And then it just all of a sudden it blows up in your face. You don't want to get it to that point. Like you can learn from what we're talking about here. And if you're seeing yourself go down that road, you got to really be honest with yourself, because if you're not honest with yourself, you're just going to keep trying to escape. And I can tell you, I promise you, it really digs at your soul when you just put that off and run away from it. It comes back even bigger. The longer you run it, it gets deeper and deeper.
Come on, man. Exposing it. Love that. When we're off camera, I'm gonna chat with you. I want to send a guy to get in touch with you. And this is what it's about, man. Like, if we're going to change society, make this world a better place, one person at a time, this is what it's about right here. There's a guy that I know stateside who I've been helping, supporting, but time zones are quite constrained. I love him to pieces, and I genuinely believe, can't obviously disclose who or where for safeguarding, but he's on a tough time. But I think a lot of this habit work that he's sharing with the viewers today and myself, like, I think that will really benefit him in a powerful way. And I think he gets alongside you, like it's almost like a revolution, like a cycle. Like, George is a circle, and then you get interlinked with his circle, and then you can enter, and you're almost passing it on. Like I always say, like if you get invested in by someone, then you should always be trying to invest in someone else. So yeah, man, I'll chat with you more about this guy. I think he would be inspired by some of your choices and the great stuff you shared today, man, for sure. I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah. That would be great.
Yeah, man. And if that's the one benefit of this chat today, then so be it, man. Like it could potentially change the course of his life from his own personal choice, of course, but with that guidance, help can always help us along the way, man. You mentioned about taking your own life a couple of times now, and thank you for doing that, and actually just exposing it for what it is, saying it how it is, and going there with your experience in the association with the weed and the video games and porn and stuff like that, because they're three big things I think that need exposing more. We've got a geezer coming up after you about porn. Can't wait to talk to him about it. He's going to expose it. It's going to be fire. But on that note of suicide and leading up to that day, and then the moment where you were near the mezzanine bit and near the balcony, you were ready to go, whether you have sound mind or not. I would go as far enough to say someone who is suicidal isn't of sound mind in that moment, but I wouldn't say as their identity, oh, they are not of sound mind, they've lost the plot, because at times it's totally valid, and that's why men die out of nowhere from suicide and no one saw it coming. But for our viewers, like our Enlighten the Shadows questions like this, it's all about suicide. And if a guy is feeling that way watching this, John, could you just give them like some small bit of advice tonight where they're at, feeling what you felt on that balcony, to help that one step to bring them back the other direction?
I would say, kind of goes back to the controversial tweet. Like, there's going to be someone out there, whether it be a family or like a friend who hasn't reached out to you in a while. Like, if you do that, someone out there is going to be like, holy shit. Like, and they're not going to feel great. They're going to feel bad. They're going to miss you. Like, they're going to wish that they had reached out, or, you know, that they could have helped you somehow. Like, someone out there actually gives a shit, whether it's family, an old friend, hell, even me and you. Like, that's not the answer. It never should be the answer. I can understand like why people think it is, because when I was coming off those antidepressants and my dad died, like I was mental for probably a good month. Like, I can definitely understand it, but it's not the solution. It's a lot tougher to kind of come back from the ledge and decide you're going to change everything about like your whole life and how you see yourself. Like, that's really freaking tough. But I promise you, if you start doing it and you give it like 30 days, 60 days, next thing you know, you're looking back 6 months, and I just think like I'm blessed. Like, I live an amazing life and it gets better every day. So if you're feeling like that, reach out to someone. It doesn't matter, you know, can be our DMs. Both of us will definitely get in touch with you.
Yeah.
I'm kind of skeptical about the whole healthcare system. That's personally me, but reach out to someone, whether it's family, whether it's someone online, reach out and kind of dig through it. Cause like we kind of talked about, like men we have like the onus on us. We're not supposed to like talk about our problems out in public, but I say, screw that. Find like one or two men you can trust, keep it as like brothers, like between us, and just start digging through the root causes of it. Because I guarantee you, no matter how bad the trauma or whether or not it was your fault or not, like if you start changing your attitude, changing your habits, like you're going to look back 6 months and be like, wow, like I'm a completely different person. Like life really does get better, but it starts with one big committed choice to kind of change everything. And that's what I would say to the viewers. Like, I would challenge you, like, if you're feeling that way, take me as an example, because you can definitely change it.
There you go. And you are, brother. You're a massive example. And we appreciate you coming on today. Also want to be honest and say appreciate your maturity and like some of the questions, like and the way that you've answered them, like put you on the spot a few times. Genuinely didn't mean to, not in a way that would be a detriment to yourself, but I'm so intrigued as a person. I'm a really open-minded guy and want to learn more, and just so inspired by people's stories, and I'm just inspired by yours, man, that you took yourself away from that balcony and you've changed your destiny. And in fact, we thank God for it. You had a decision to make as well, and that's what we're trying to make clear to the viewers, aren't we? Like, you know, the root of that selfishness is that actually, yeah, take it as selfish. It has to be a selfish decision to say, no, I'm going to take a step back here, and as you say, one day at a time. Give it a month, lads, and you just never know what's on the horizon. So yeah, man, thank you. Seriously, it's been sick, and I'd love to keep in touch with you. And I say we'll talk after about that guy. But yeah, guys, thank you for tuning into episode 50. This has been Jonathan Seator, and on the screen right now are his handles for social media. Check him out, give him a follow. His content's very good. Sometimes I do think Twitter's funny, as in there's guys who don't have that many followers like ourselves, like we're not on tons, that come up with the content we do, and then you see people that just absolutely, like, you go, how's that creating benefit to society? But hey ho, we'll leave it there. So give them a follow, and guys, check out the private men's chat group. We've put it on the screen already. We'll put it on right now for you. If you feel like you are one of those men that you can relate to what John's saying or anything we've mentioned, just come on the group, lads. It'll be one of the best decisions ever made. Things go on that group that they blow my mind. And it's just a wonderful place to be part of. So join that. And then lastly, as we say, get subscribed to the channel, get on it. We know from algorithms, if we have more subscribers, it has more reach. Our presence is more known throughout the world of YouTube. So yeah, we'd appreciate if you do that. And we will see you next time. We've got some bangers coming up, as I said. But yeah, appreciate you guys. Nice one. Cheers, John, mate.
Thank you. Cheers.